Perfect. So good, Harriet. Welcome to Spark TV.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle.
I'm so excited to have you on. You were mentioned in another podcast recording that we did. So I was so glad to be connected with you so we could talk all things sales. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk business and things, but I'm obsessed. So I'm super excited to talk to you because I know in the other podcast, it was quite a breakthrough. So I'm so excited to share your story with the Spark community. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started with just telling people by what it is you actually do.
Yes. So I'm a sales coach and consultant. So I get to talk about sales all day, which is like my favorite thing to do. To a lot of people, they'd be like, that is the worst job in the world. But I am so happy that that is what I get to do. What is a sales coach and consultant? I go in and transform businesses through sales. Ultimately is the opportunity. I've been in sales for about 17 years. For the last 12 years, or maybe for about approximately 12 years, I've been in ICT and cybersecurity sales. And then that really makes people switch off. So if I say I'm in sales, they're like, cool. And then I say cybersecurity and IT, and they're like, oh, okay, there's my friend. Let me go and meet them.
Somebody's calling my name across the room.
You have that phone.
I love it.
So yes, yeah. But I make sales fun. So I mean, if I can't have a conversation and at the end of it someone goes, this was really interesting, or I learned some cool things about sales, then I'm not really doing my job properly. So that's ultimately what I get to do every day.
I love it so much. So how did you get into sales then?
Oh, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, like most people.
Yes, like most people. And I think I say this on most podcasts or whenever I get asked about how I got into it. And I was like, you sit in a room and the trainer goes, put your hands up if you want to be in IT sales, and everybody laughed. Like that was my entry, into sales. But I was an events planner. That was what I always wanted to do.
Oh,
it
cool.
was the dream. I mean, glamour and organization, which is, again, my sales and organization are like my two favorite things. So I get to do all these cool things, but it actually was quite boring. It was the same thing day in, day out. I ran a national events arm for a business. So I drove thousands of miles across the UK. I saw some awesome places. But it was the same thing, lugging boxes in and out of venues, sweaty, dusty, kind of very faceless options. So for me, it wasn't really working. I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then I went to go and work for a tech company, and very Google-esque, and you can run the events internally. I had an unlimited amount of money, and we hired out cinemas, and we hired people to come and dress up like the characters from the film. And so it was very cool, and that was great. But the CEO saw in me what I had resisted for many years, which is I'm a salesperson. Because I'm a connector, I think that's the clear distinguished point, was that I connect people very well. I connect problems with outcomes. I connect people with people that I believe will get on or connect or learn from one another. And he saw that in me, and I was like, absolutely no way. I just did not want to be a salesperson. Like, I mean, could you imagine being introduced, like, what do you do? I'm in sales. Like, I just would not want to
turn and run. People literally turn and run.
They will be like, oh, you're that person. Like, sleazy. Yes, I get it. And so, yes, so it took me a little while, but for me, I turned a big corner in my sales, identifying what sales actually can do when I was working at an IT company, and I started to see the transformations we were having for clients. Yes. And at that point, I was like, hang on a minute. Do we just do that? And as soon as I started connecting the dots between what our clients, and these were big clients in the UK, having massive issues, and it was back when it mattered where you were hosted. So if you had a website and you were based in the UK and you hosted it in America, it was having to go from the UK to America and back again. And that time and that delay was impacting sales.
Yes.
And we were removing that problem. So as soon as I saw that coming together, I was like, hang on a minute. We do that, we transform that, we create that outcome. Why are we not ringing everybody in the UK and telling them that this is something that we can do? And at that point, it wasn't, let me get on the phone and sell to somebody. It was like, I know 100 companies that need this, and without it, they are at a disadvantage against everybody else. Yeah. So for me, it was that turning point. And so now when I work with my awesome clients, I'm looking for that golden nugget. I'm looking for the transformation. I'm looking for that success piece that I can say, okay, do you know that by doing this and bringing them together, this is the outcome you can support? And I've not even said the word sales yet. So
Yes.
that's for me was where the transformation point came. And that was, about 17 years ago.
Wow, that is incredible. And it is so funny, isn't it? I think, I work with a lot of business owners, and specifically female business owners, and just the idea of sales, just people are kicking and screaming. But one of the things that I love that you said was, if you're not telling people about the transformation, so you were just saying about how that tech company that you worked for really had the ability to change the game for some of the businesses that you connected them with. And that's what I like about sales. It's like, if you're not telling people, like your potential customers, about the problem you're solving and about your solution, you're actually doing them a disservice.
100%. And again, and I had this conversation yesterday with a client and a new sales team. And again, coming back to, if you want to tell somebody something about the transformation, ask them a question first. Yes. Ask them, what are you trying to achieve? And then when they say this, say, awesome, how are you currently doing that? How do you feel you are achieving that? Okay, get them to tell you what it is that they need. And you go, okay, how about if I could get you to this point without this pain, how would that feel? They'd be like, I would hug you, or like I would jump for joy, or, whatever that would be. It'd be like, that's not possible. It's like, well, actually it is. And here's how. So by asking questions, you get them to tell you what you need, and you go, okay, and how would this look, and how would this feel, and how would this transform your life or your business? They're going to tell you whether you can sell to them or not. And we're not then going to go, okay, now we're going to turn on our sales voice, and then we're going to say, this is what we do. We're just going to have a conversation. If at the end of it, they're not a hell yes, then we haven't done our job properly, or they're not our ideal audience, and we're not going to sell to them.
Yes. And that's okay. And not everybody will be your ideal customer. And that doesn't mean you won't be successful.
No, absolutely not. Because all that means is that, again, your friend or their friend of a friend goes, oh, I need some sales training, or I need this insert service or product. And they go, oh, I spoke to this really awesome woman the other day, and it wasn't quite a fit for us because she does this, this, and this. Why don't I put you in touch with her? And that's what ends up happening. And if they don't need it right now, they might need it in 6 months, in a year. I have clients that come to me 2 years later. Like, I remember in IT, specifically with cybersecurity, I had someone come back to me after 2.5 years. I didn't waste every minute of every week calling them. I just had great conversations, meaningful touch points. And then when the time was right, they thought of me. They didn't think of anybody else. They thought of me.
Yes, I love that. And you're so right. Like, you started this conversation by saying how you made sales fun. And, having great conversations with people is fun. That the stigma around sales is like, you've got to have this crazy strategy, this crazy process. You've got to, really almost trick people into seeing your way. But I love that. Just have amazing conversations with people and let them tell you whether you can sell to them. That is incredible. It's genius.
Exactly. So, it's unlocking that door. And then once you've got that, you're unstoppable, because you see the possibility, you see the process, you see the steps. You just got to do it now.
Yeah. And do you think that there's much of a difference between, I know that you've worked with some really high-end enterprise clients. Do you think that there's much of a difference between, say, startups, small businesses, and those bigger corporates when it comes to the sales process?
Process, not so much. Mindset, 100%.
Talk to me about that.
Yes. So I'll talk about two things for this. One is men selling is one thing. Second is the way that we think, and that's our mindset. So firstly, I'm just going to say about men, I work predominantly with men. They're awesome. Okay. I love working with men and women, totally, like new, different skill sets, different perspectives. Men are unapologetically ambitious. They are unapologetically confident. I can do a lot with that. Okay, yep. I can be like, I ran them up and off they go, and they're like, this, we're gonna, my goal for the year is $200 million, and I'm like, sweet, like,
fabulous.
How do you do it? And then I speak to my female clients who are just, let's say, like, that's an enterprise client. Let's then say, then I've got a small business, they go, I just want to hit 10 grand. That's all I want to get this year, 10 grand. And I'm like, okay, you could easily do 100 grand, but okay, we'll start with 10 because 100 grand is going to scare you. So we come in at these different scales, okay, from that mindset perspective. All the men are doing is going, well, I've got this behind me, and I whatever I say I can achieve. And it's that approach, which is awesome. And I wish more women had it. And that's an empowerment mindset, confidence piece, especially when we're selling ourselves and our own products, that comes from a different perspective. Then when we talk about the mindset piece, and actually it was funny, I was talking about this with a friend the other day, because I said, I am effectively a small to medium business, right? I'm not a startup. I wouldn't, but I think like an enterprise business. If you say to me what you do, I'm like, oh, I think like a $200 million business.
Yeah.
Because what's the difference?
Exactly.
Nothing is the difference. So if you are a startup or a small business, and you want to sell like a $200 million company, there's no difference between what you're doing. The only difference is that you may have more brand awareness. You may not. You may not. I've worked with businesses that have scaled to 8 million in the first year. Like, that's achievable. It doesn't mean the market knows who they are. It just means they've got more stories. They've got more credibility potentially in that market. All you need to do is have 1, 2, 3 sales conversations or close sales. You've got a fleet of stories that you can go out and talk about. And all the difference is the enterprise go, I've got this massive brand behind me, I'm going to go for it. Small businesses go, you probably don't know who I am, so I'm going to start off by telling you who I am. And I'm like, no, start off with your shoulders high and your chest out, and let's go for this. You should know who I am. You should have heard of me, because I'm incredible at what I do. I transform lives, I transform businesses, and therefore we can have a conversation along that route. So that's, for me, it's mindset and confidence. But there's very little difference in selling from a startup versus selling from an enterprise established business.
That is so good. I just like, I'd want you in my ear every morning as a business owner going, you are bloody amazing. Go out there and get in front of everyone and tell them what you do, because you are so right. It is so interesting. We obviously teach sales as well at Spark. And one of the things that I'm blown away by is, people have the tools. There are so many courses. There's so many bloody gurus. There's so many coaches. There's so many things. People have the tools and the knowledge. They have the frameworks, but picking up the phone or sending the email and I'm all right, how many outreach did we do this week? Oh, well, I just, and I'm like, oh, if you don't talk to anyone, you're not going to make any sales.
Thank you. If you don't talk to anybody, you're not going to make any sales. And again, marketing plays a big piece in in the sales conversation. You can have marketing, but without sales, you don't have sales. Okay, so that's marketing will give you reach or generate you leads, but it's not a conversion. And if your marketing is good enough to convert, great, but you're probably still only converting this amount. Like, I'm using my hands here. Like, you're only converting maybe 20-30% of what you could be doing. So when people say to me, I've got 100% conversion, I'm like, you're not trying hard enough. No one's got 100% conversion.
And no one has 100%.
You're not trying. It shouldn't be 100%.
Yes.
It shouldn't be 100%, because it means then that you're either pushing too many people into the sale, or you're not. Generally, the reason is you're not outbounding, and you're dealing then with inbounds, and you're classing people that you want to work with, and then you're taking the conversions from that. So generally, that's the process. But you mentioned before picking up the phone. Oh, it's my biggest bugbear. I build strategies that incorporate so many avenues of communication. All are fine. You get to the call, and at the end of the week or end of the month, I go, right, where are we at? Tell me numbers. What are the activities? They're like, yeah, I'm not really getting the response I was hoping. I'm like, is what I've done not working? Like, what do you mean it's not working? Like, this works. I've tested it. I've done it for years. I'm constantly improving it. How is this not working? And I go in, we go, right, talk me through it. Then what happened? Okay, cool. Then when do you call them? I didn't call them. I'm like, okay, like this is like the final piece of the strategy that will get you a yes or a no. Because often what happens is we let them sit in our pipeline, we let them sit in our mindset, which is really annoying. Every day you're like, oh, Harriet's not calling me back. Oh, do I call her? Do I not call her? Do I follow up? And you happily send emails. You'll send an email every 3 weeks, okay? Hey, just checking in.
I hate just checking in.
Do you have any questions? Also hate that. So those two are generally what people will follow up with. Whereas actually, if you pick up the phone and say, hey, Danielle, how are you? Number one, like that would be a great opener. And then we then say, awesome, I sent you through some information, would love to get some feedback. I sent you through a proposal after our conversation, would love to know what your initial thoughts are. That's it. That's all we have to do. And then Danielle says, I'm too busy. She says, it's no longer priority. It's Feb. Awesome. Can I call you in Feb? What day? What time? Let me send you through an invite.
Yep.
The process keeps moving. Whereas when all we do is send an email, you'll have 20, 30 people sitting there. And then you go, yeah, they're dead leads. They're not, because we get busy as consumers. So think about other, in the other foot. And I never say to sell like you want to be sold to, because we should sell like our clients want to be sold to. But always consider how you're being followed up. And I'm your best person to sell to. I'm also your worst person to sell to.
I'm the worst.
If you're good,
if
you're good, I'm like, take my money. Like, can you say that again? Like, that's the, the
I'm writing this down. I'm writing this down. They're like, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. I'm like, can you just does this work every time? Like, can you just tell me the process? And I had that with us. So we had to get our solar panels renewed. And the whole process, I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is insane. Like, his ROI and the way he positioned all of the things. And I was like, take my money. Like, that's fine. Like, yeah, let's do this. So again, was great. But when it's not good, like I had, again, like I'm having some work done in the garden. I got 2 quotes for fences. They never called me back. So guess what I'm doing? I'm keep searching for more fence people until somebody, I feel like they get me and I feel like they understand what it is that I need. Now, again, someone could go, they're too busy. Okay, they're too busy now. But what happens in March? What happens in April when everything starts to slow down a bit?
Yeah.
Is they still busy then? How are they going to manage me as a prospect at that point? So again, follow up. People get busy. Other things get in the way. If you ring them and they go, oh, Harriet, I'm so sorry, you haven't been on my list. Let's do this right now, is generally what you'll get if they're ready to go. If they're not, you'll confirm a date, you'll confirm a time, and you move on. Now you can focus on something else. You can get on with something else without having Danielle, Harriet, Sarah, John, Steve, Katie in your head, because every day it's like, oh, what's the point? These people don't want it. Actually, they probably do. You just need to ring them.
I love that so much. And something else you said as well, so about the fence guys.
Yes.
I also get blown away by when people make it difficult for you to spend money with them. So isn't it funny when you are chasing someone like, hey, I really need this done. I need this. Can I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And they're not getting back to you, and I do get it as business owners or salespeople or whatever. We're busy too, but, we don't have a business if we don't have sales and revenue coming in. So prioritizing getting back to people and just making it easy to sell to them and for them to pay you money. Like even just, I talk a lot about strategy and process, but I'm also like, if someone just wants to pay you, let them pay you. Don't force them through your process. I remember I was trying to switch marketing CRM, and I have used marketing CRMs for like ever, but I think it was Marketo actually. I had to sit on this call with this lady asking me her qualification questions, and I wasn't allowed to get a demo or a trial until I'd talked to this other person. And I was like, I already know that I want this, and you are blocking this sale. Like, are you people crazy? Like, I had to wait a week to get in front of the right person that could do that part of the sales process. So I feel like we also need to be flexible in our approach as well.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And asking them the question of like, okay, well, look, what do you see those next steps being from now? And then talk through, well, look, usually what I find works really well is that we go through this step because of this reason. We go through this step so you get this. We make it about our clients, whereas often it's like, okay, well, I need to do this and then I need you to do that. You've lost me then again, because it's about you and your process. And if you're getting pushback every time, maybe your process should change. Maybe there's another step in there. But as long as you've qualified and you're moving them through and you're ticking the boxes that you need, making it about them. That's the goal here.
I love that so much. So, okay, talk to me about, obviously you've gone from internal, being a salesperson, events roles, being an employee, to now a business owner. What was that transition like for you?
Oh, do you know, it doesn't feel any different. I don't know whether that was the right answer. I've had this conversation so many times. It's like, remember when you first started your business and you'd be like, when I hit my first 6 figures, this is how I'm going to feel. Yeah, doesn't feel any different. Like to the day
still feels like I can't get through my to-do list.
Yeah, that's all that happens. I'm like, I just have a few more clients now. Like that's really it. But it's so yeah, for me, I've always been very fortunate to work with people that let me do my own thing. I have and I think, you know, that's credit really to where I've got to today, because you know, I've learned within businesses that are extremely successful businesses. I've had breakfast with Richard Branson on Necker Island.
Oh my God.
I've been at round tables with billionaires in the UK. I've been at, you know, meetings and introductions here in Australia, around Australia, in Asia. Like, I have been exposed to some insane people, like insane ability to build businesses and wealth. And so for me, like, I'm so thankful for all of those experiences. But I think for me coming into a business, nothing really changed, because I run my business like I ran I call them my mini business when I worked for other companies. Yes. Because I was my own business. I was my own brand. I was my own, you know, outreach. I did all of my cold calls. I did all of my opportunities. And so people wouldn't come and buy from me because I worked for a company. They came and bought from me because of who I was and what I could achieve and the way that I delivered and the way that I supported my clients. So I think now, you know, running a business, it's a bit more responsibility. Like, that's, you know, I guess that's kind of there. This is my second business. So I had a day spa previously. So I opened, it was my tester. It was a risky tester. But
yeah, I'm like, a retail presence as a tester? Are you crazy?
Yes. I was like, I think I can
do
it. There was a gap, there was a space, and I was like, oh, let's try it. And so we set up a wellness spa. So that was up in the Northern Beaches in Perth. And so we had that for 3.5 years and sold it. So set it up from the ground up. It was a bottle shop. So it went from a bottle shop to a four treatment room day spa, and then sold it then to another salon. They've got now a second location. So that was different because I had physical presence and I had knowledge, but more so I was cybersecurity sales. Like, I wasn't treatment sales. So for me, it was a really good learning, a really good lesson. And I had staff. I mean, the biggest thing I would always say, like, my learnings from all that is have contracts. For everything. And I say that today, you know, still to this day, everything you do is bound by your contracts. And I don't think businesses value it enough. But when you really need it, you'll be really thankful that you had a contract.
I love that you said that, because I remember when I started Scrunch and we started signing our first clients. So this is my other business, influencer marketing agency. Yes. I remember when we first started getting the yeses, like, I felt so weird about sending a contract to someone. I don't know what it was. Like, I felt like almost like I didn't, like, it wasn't real. Like, yes, they'd said yes, but I didn't quite believe them yet. And I also, like, I feel like, because my sales style is so friendly, I almost feel like sending a contract and an invoice was like too professional and too not friendly. I was like, but in saying that, I only made that mistake once.
You do. That's true. You only do it once. Yes. And so did you rectify the situation for not having the contract? Did that come out in the right way?
So no, so it was a really bad, horrible lesson that cost us a lot of money. But I learned the lesson that you always have contracts, and yes, it was an expensive lesson to learn, which is why I love that you said it. Cause I'm like, if we can tell everyone not to make this mistake, please don't make this mistake. So yeah, it was really horrible. Ended up costing us money. So the client didn't pay for their campaign, and we ended up having to pay influencers that had done work. So we were out of pocket and blah, blah, blah. Which is horrendous. But yeah, again, we then sent ironclad contracts with cancellation clauses to anybody who said they wanted an influencer campaign from them. So it's crazy.
And again, if contract sounds, and because I'm similar to you, like, you know, conversation. And again, when I worked with bigger businesses, was that we'd have to do an agreement, which generally got, you know, it was like back and forth, but it was always the most time consuming part. So for me, I was like, well, I don't need to do them now, because it's just me, you know, it's my business. I get to decide if we do them. And I paid a lot of money for my contracts and I didn't use them. So one client, similar story, where I had done the work and then I went to invoice and no reply. They wanted me to do more work. They just didn't. I was like, that's fine, I'll do more work, but you need to pay my first invoice. And again, you know, kind of 2 months went by. It was about, I think we got to like 10, 12 weeks. And in the end, I had a meeting, and I'll take a step back. I ended up passing it on to my lawyers and said, can you go after it? It was not a big amount of money. And my lawyer said, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's going to cost me probably as much as the invoice would to get them to proceed. And I said, yeah, because it's a point. I'm making a point. You cannot get me to, you cannot engage me and do all the work and then not pay me, because the benefit of my contract would be that I could then fall into enforcing some of the terms. I've also then got late payment clause, things like that. So therefore I would have then gone, well, it's fine, I can cover my costs because this is what they're going to have to pay. They've signed a contract. And so now it doesn't matter if it's $1,000, I will still send out and I call mine an agreement. So again, like a services agreement, because it just feels more aligned with what I'm doing. So services agreement, I have a non-disclosure agreement. I work with a lot of businesses that tell me everything. And so I sign an NDA, and then we then have the first payment up front. And if they don't pay the first payment up front, we don't work together. So that's the process. And again, that bit's scary. If you think about that as your first, second, third deal, and to us, we go, okay, it's another barrier. It's another barrier to saying no. Or you've said yes, but what if I show them the contract and then they now say no? You don't want to work with them if they're not going to sign that contract. You'll find somebody else.
And the interesting thing I found as well was the bigger the company I worked with, the more they expected it. So they expected a contract and they expected specific terms, and almost, if I wasn't meeting that, then I wasn't looking professional as a business. So it was kind of, and I actually started working it into sales conversations and using it as kind of my test. How close to closing are we? Like, what kind of payment terms do you typically work with? Or is this okay? Or is this okay? So that by the time you get to the end where you are ready to sign a contract, you've already talked about loosely everything that goes into it. So nothing should be a surprise. So it feels a lot more comfortable for you to send anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that comes into your process. So again, it's like, awesome, this is moving through. And these are your buying signals, as you said, like you're doing a trial close, you're positioning some options, you're getting feedback. If they say, oh, I'm not sure, I'll have to come back to you, or let me know what you recommend. Yeah, that's like I'm not sure. Okay. But again, if you don't ask it, you don't know. And if you're fearful of not winning something, you are giving that energy off to the client anyway. So if you're showing up from please say yes, then if you show up and don't ask the real questions and don't move your opportunity forward, they're going to know that you're desperate for that sale, and nobody wants to be desperate.
No, and that's exactly right. And I think the quicker, though, that you can uncover whether somebody is right for you or wrong for you, the better, right? Because it'd be far better to ask the pointed questions that help you uncover that this person is very keen and your ideal customer, versus kind of just skirting around all of the important issues and just wasting so much time with people that aren't ever going to buy from you anyway. So yes, it might feel a bit uncomfortable, but in the long run, that is going to be such a better investment in your time.
Absolutely. It's getting to know as quickly as possible. That's how I call it. And people go, what do you mean we want them to say no? And I'm like, no, we don't want them to say no. But if you're going to say no now.
Yes.
So I love that as quickly as possible.
And because one thing you said that I loved before was you shouldn't have 100% conversion rate. I talk about this when people are scared of getting no. And I was like, well, okay, well, what's your conversion rate? And so if you have a conversion rate that's 10% or 20% or 50%, I'm like, that means that 50% of the time you're hearing no. So you better get used to it, It's just part of the process, and it's nothing to, take personally.
No, but if you haven't had a no, you're not learning. Your process isn't, if you don't put yourself out there enough to get a no, or to get a not right now, or to get a not sure, we can learn from a not sure. We can learn from a not right now, or we can learn from a no, because then we position it differently. So, I use that. I always recommend to have an objection table or on a whiteboard somewhere, and note them down, because you may only be you right now, but you won't potentially won't be you forever. So have you got a team coming on board? What can they learn from your no's or from your rejections? If you have a big team, you can have an objection wall, and people go up and they're like, yes, I got a new objection today, and they go and put the objection on the wall, and they talk about how we can learn from it. Every sales meeting I run for my clients is, What's been like, can someone show an objection this week? How could we have handled that differently?
Yes.
Because then we learn and we have a more robust process and we get to know as quickly as possible. A lot of my clients find X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And then when they say, oh, no, I don't really like that. That's not really kind of my approach. Okay, let me delve a little bit deeper. All right, based on what you've said, I don't think I'm the right person for you. However, I've got a couple of people I can put you in with. This is the process. So you get to say no as much as your clients get to say no at the same time.
That is so good. And I think that, more broadly, that's such a great attitude to take into business. Not everything goes right. You will get so many no's, whether it's trying to hire employees, whether it's suppliers, whether it is those potential customers. There will be so many challenges along the way, but if you can take the lesson, take the learning and go and really ask yourself, okay, how could we do that better next time? That is like an outstanding business lesson, not just sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good. Okay, let's leave the Spark community with perhaps one more piece of wisdom. So a lot of people that are dialing in are early stage founders of small businesses or startups, and a lot of them do struggle to put their sales hat on. So is there anything, if you were talking to a business owner, maybe specifically a female, any advice you would give them for just getting started?
Getting started. I would say build out your target list of your dream clients. Don't worry about how you're going to get them. Don't worry about what the steps are to get there. Build them out, because what often if I say like, who's your ideal audience? Oh, we can service everybody. Like, okay. And it's not niching. Like, so again, you may have a niche and it may be this tiny niche, but if you're servicing accountants, if you're servicing coaches, if you're servicing new mums, so focus on that and work out who your target audience is and speak to them. Like, what do they want to know? What would they like to hear? Because sales is about connection. It's about connecting problems with outcomes, and it's about connecting people. People buy from people. So if you can do everything with them in mind, you are going to show up in a different way. If you can learn and take on board their words, their language, you're going to know exactly how to speak to them. And, we talked before about, I was mentioned on another podcast, the big transformation for them was around the language, because we generalize. So if you are talking to businesses that have a challenge of, I'm trying to think of an example. I'll use a sales example. Like, if I'm talking to a business and their challenge is around lead generation, and I may call it prospect building and they may call it lead generation. If I start calling it prospect building, I'm not connecting. If I call it lead generation, they're like, oh, she knows what we mean. Or now I know what she means. Okay. Yes. So I use the example of like PTs and gym instructors where you go, I want to get fit, or do I want to lose fat, or do I want to be able to do a pull-up? Okay, like what's the goal? Align me back to my goal every time, and you will connect with me on a different level. When you start trying to use your jargon, your language, and what you generalize, you don't achieve anything. You don't hit anybody. And so if we look at your sales messaging across your website, which is often where small businesses go first, they're like, I need a website, and then I need to have a sales page, and then I need to have a process. You actually don't need any of that. You just need to be able to have a conversation. But if that's where you're sitting right now, go back to your ideal audience, go back to the conversations, go back to your inquiries, gather the language and the wording, chuck that on your website, use that in your next DM, use that in your next email. You'll connect with way more people, and you know who you're shooting for. So have those dream aligned audiences, have those clients there, have the revenue points if you really want to, but it's all about clients and it's about making a difference. And so if you can start there, that's a great place to start, rather than going, I'm going to build a website and it's got to have 17 pages on. My website's not even finished yet. Like, I've been in business 2.5, nearly 3 years doing this. Nobody looks at my website.
Yeah.
They might go and just go, okay, is it legit? Has she got what's on there? I've got some freebie resources. Maybe they look at that. But no one's reading through every page of my website to decide if they want to work with me. They've got to read through the first bit and go, okay, does she align? Get it out there across your socials, across LinkedIn. Use the language. It will resonate with so many more people, and it will make your job as a salesperson, because we're in business, we're selling, it will make that much easier.
You are absolutely incredible, Harriet. Thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your insights and wisdom with the Spark community. I couldn't be more thankful.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.